Good morning, everyone. My name is Harjot Singh. Today, me and my group members are going to discuss about what stakeholders are, their types, and how important are they to an organization or a project. Moreover, we are also discussing identification and management of stakeholders. To start with, uh, what is stakeholder? A stakeholder is any person, group, or organization who has an interest in a company that can either affect or be affected by the business. Well, in simple words, stakeholder is anyone with an interest in or a concern for the project's overall success. There is a stakeholder theory provided by an American philosopher R. Edward Freeman. He said, to be successful, an organization has to provide value to all stakeholders, all of the relevant individuals and group who help determine the success or failure of the organization. There are some of typical stakeholders like employees, customers, suppliers, communities, government, or trade associates. Types of stakeholder. Well, there are basically two types of stakeholders. One is internal, which is also known as primary stakeholder, and the other one is external, which is also known as secondary stakeholders. Well, these stakeholders plays a vital role for a number of reasons. Like for internal, they are important because the project's operations rely on their ability to to, to work together towards the project's goal. Whereas internal stakeholder, on the other hand, can affect project or a business indirectly. Like for instance, customer can change their buying habits, supplier can change their manufacturing and distribution practices, and government can modify laws and regulation. So ultimately, managing relationship with internal and external stakeholder is a key to project's long-term success. Uh, like here it shows different internal and external stakeholders involved in a project. They are like uh, there's an investor group which involves owners, shareholders, or stockholders. Then comes the members, which involves executives, managers, and employees. Uh, Outside of that, there are external groups like vendors, suppliers, customers, government, media, etc. Internal stakeholders. Well, internal stakeholders are those personals who are directly involved in any project on daily basis are known as internal or primary stakeholders. These stakeholders can directly affect or get affected by the business successes or failures experienced by the project. There's an example like if a venture capital firm decides to invest $5 million in a construction project in return for 10% equity and significant influence, the firm becomes an internal stakeholder of that project. These internal stakeholders have direct kind of influence on a project. Moreover, they have information of internal matters of a project. There are uh, there are some of main internal stakeholders like shareholders or owners, employees, and managers. Shareholders or owners. Well, these are the most important stakeholders as they control the business. Moreover, they decide what happens to the business as they are the ones who make profit of the business, profit if the business is successful. They are the ones who are investing their money in a project. They provide capital to the project, so they definitely expect reasonable return on their money they have invested on the project. Moreover, appreciation in share value and safety of their capital. They often make substantial decisions regarding both internal and external stakeholders. Their interest is focused on financial gain, and their role in the company's operation is often minimal, as they do not get involved in day-to-day running of the business. Then comes the employees. Well, employees are the human resources. They are the people who provide us with physical and mental efforts in order to run our projects. They have significant financial and time investments in the organization and plays a defining role in the strategy, tactics, and the operations the organization carries out. They are the company's most important assets. Moreover, they have direct stake in the company as they earn money from the organization, which help them to support their families. So definitely the employees can get affected by the decision of the organization. Now, obviously, because the employees do not want to end up working in a company who is at the point of closing or shutting down, they are expecting job security, good salary, great working conditions, and opportunity for growth. Moreover, the company's success depend in large measure on the skills and the dedication of their employees. Managers. Well, managers are found at different level within a business, from supervisor and team leaders up to senior management. They plays a substantial role in determining strategy of the organization and a significant voice in the operational decision. They also determine an appropriate schedule for the regular performance. Uh, they mentor workers in such a manner that strengthens the two-way communication and reinforces desired behavior. Manager expect freedom to manage, fair remuneration, and dignity of their position. Thank you. From here on, Lakhvinder will continue.
Well, thank you, Ajay. This is Lakwinder Singh. My topic name is external stakeholders, and I'm going to start it with the definition of external stakeholders. So, external stakeholders are a group outside of business or people who don't work inside the business but are affected in some way by the decision and actions of the business. So, external stakeholders are those who entities that don't belong to your organization but are impacted by or impacted your performance. So this include your impact on the environment and quality of the life of communities. It also include impact of regulations and media organization on your performance. For example, external stakeholders are those who indirectly get benefit from the business but doesn't interact with the business or project at all. Here are some examples of the external stakeholders. The first one is customers, and then suppliers, creditors, local community, society, the government. So customers want the business to produce quality products at reasonable price. For example, I worked with a company named GS Alloys in India, and we we produce pistons, and all our customer want the car pistons with the very best quality and at reasonable price and very uh, in the very stock. So shareholders are also the example is shareholders is one of the examples of the customer. So it's like shareholders have an interest in the business operations since they are counting on the business to remain profitable and provide a return on their investment in the business. So it's like if someone buy shareholders, someone buys shares of the company or the project, and if it gradually increased by the time, and the shareholder get the benefit according to the time. So in some cases, customers are considered primary stakeholders because they are exposed to risk related to your performance. For example, a customer that depend on your software products may face substantial risk if you fail to fix known security vulnerabilities in the software. So the next one is creditors. Creditors that supply financial capital, raw material, and services to the business want to be paid on time and in full. It's like I worked in the project that we select our creditors to supply the raw materials and other products like aggregate, sand, and cement also. So these are the external stakeholders. They doesn't work with my project, with my company, but they are they get benefit by selling their product, and we are the buyers for them. So those are the creditors. The next one is local government or the government needs business to thrive in order to pay taxes that support government services such as education, police, and fire protection. It's like the government also get help from the project when the project owner or the authority pay the taxes to the government, and they use those taxes, and they use those money to pay for the education and for the police and fire protection and other works who are under the government. It's like building roads and construct more bridges. For example, in my country, there is a tax named GST, goods and service tax. So the government pay, we should pay the government GST, and the government allow us to use their roads and bridges, and they construct for our safety and for our comfort. So local community has a stake in the business because it provides jobs which generate economic activity within the community. In many cases, investors, community members of the community which you operate include city governments and individuals such as neighbors of a factory. Uh, in India, mainly in the village areas, the company are to be built, and uh, job get the and the job uh, and many people get the job, and it's like they are working with the company properly, and they are very blessed with that. So society as a whole, as well as the local community, is concerned about the impact that business operations have on the environment in terms of noise, air, and water pollution. Society act as a external stakeholder in the way that if a company makes a noise pollution or water or air pollution, then it may affect them in a consideration way. So some people like that, and other people don't like that. It depends on their choice. If one of their family member work in that company or work in that project, they doesn't have any problem. But the work but the house who doesn't work in the project, they have problem, and they may create some illegal action against the project or the company. Society also has an interest in the business with regard to the safety of the goods and service produced by the business. It also Society's members are also interested in the business. Is like they are buying their products, and they like their service and goods produced by the project or any company. So they need to follow the rules and regulations, and they to buy the product of the business. And if they buy at a reasonable price, they all automatically get the profitable funds and like they are satisfied with their needs. So these are the external stakeholders who doesn't work with the business at all. So in the last, supplier needs the business to continue to buy their products in order to maintain their own profitability and long-term financial health. Yes, I can give the real life example. The in the company that I worked in, they also select.
Thanks, Lakwinder. Hello, everyone. From here on, I'm going to explain about processes of stakeholder management. Stakeholder management is the process by which one organizes, monitors, and improves relationship with the stakeholders. The process of stakeholder management knowledge area helps us to identify stakeholders, keep them engaged, and ensure that stakeholder satisfaction is achieved. We have four processes in the stakeholder management area. First is initiating process group known as identify stakeholders. Then we have got planning process group called plan stakeholder engagement. We have got executing process group called manage stakeholder engagement, and monitor stakeholder engagement falls under monitoring and controlling process group. So these are the four processes of stakeholder management knowledge area. So we'll take a quick look at all these processes. First is identify stakeholders. In initiating process group, if you visualize the project the way it flows, identification of stakeholder happens immediately after developing a project charter. So the first job of the PM is to identify and collect details of a stakeholder. This is the process of identifying the people, groups, and organization that could impact or be impacted by the project. So remember the definition of stakeholder: people, group, or organization that impact or can be impacted or perceived to be impacted by the project. They're all project stakeholders. In this case, for identifying stakeholders, that is exactly what we are trying to do. We are trying to come up with a list of stakeholders in the project. An important point here is this can include the decision, activity, or outcome of the project. When we say a project, there are a number of decisions in the project. So if anyone who is going to be impacted by that decision, or someone who has an influence to impact that decision, they are stakeholders of the project. Similarly, like activities, there are a number of activities in the project. If someone who can impact on those activities or be impacted by those activities, they are all stakeholders. Examples of directly impacted stakeholders are project team members or customers for whom the project is being done, and examples for indirectly impacted stakeholders include an adjacent organization or members of the local community. So why identification of stakeholders is important? Let me explain you with an example. A few years back, an automobile company tried to open a manufacturing plant in India, They collaborated with the state government and bought the land to build the plant. The plant was almost complete when the local farmers who used to own the land become agitated. They started making new demands. They were supported by a party in political opposition to a manufacturing plant. The company failed to meet their demand, so finally the company had to transfer the facility to another state. This caused the company a massive loss and embarrassment to the state government. If the state government had taken a local stakeholders or local farmers into the consideration, the situation would have been different. So this is the reason why identification of stakeholders is important in the initial stage of the project. So next is identify stakeholders, documents and techniques used to find stakeholders. The project charter appoints the project manager and officially starts the project. This document contains high level information like name of the project, name of the project manager, client, sponsor, and other influential stakeholders. Contract documents, here in contract agreement can give you the names of suppliers, local agents, and contacts from the client side. OPA and EF. Here, these two can reveal many stakeholders. The stakeholder register and lesson learned documents from OPA from the past projects can also help us to find more stakeholders. The government is a key stakeholder for any project. We must maintain a good working relationship with various government authorities. Their support is critical to the success of the project. So we can get information on the government entities from EEF. Interview with experts. Here we don't need to interview all the stakeholders, but we should use this technique for the influential ones so that we can gain a great deal of information this way. Brainstorming sessions. In brainstorming session, it is a good strategy actually for collecting information. We can use this tool to identify stakeholders for the project. This can be done with team members or experts. So next is plan stakeholder. This is the process of developing appropriate management strategies to effectively engage stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle. So here we need to come up with some management strategies to engage the stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle. So here stakeholder identification. This section is used to identify all the project stakeholders by name. And this section also defines their role and responsibilities as they relate to the project. Here in planning to interact with the stakeholders, this is dedicated to actually determining how the project team will interact and engage with the stakeholder identified in the initial stage of the project. In stakeholder engagement activities, this section of the plan is essentially an outline of various activities the project team will undertake to communicate with the stakeholders, manage their expectations, and keep them engaged with the project. This includes activities such as pre-planned meetings with the stakeholders or key reports. So next is levels of engagement. We need to divide or differentiate stakeholders based on their levels with the project. So first is unaware. Here these stakeholders does not know the project is started or not. So next is resistant. These stakeholders are aware of the project but are resistant to change. The stakeholders classified at this engagement level can seriously jeopardize the project deliverables. It is going to be more problematic if the stakeholders under this level who have an high power or influence over the project. Neutral. Here stakeholders having this level of engagement are aware of the project but are neither supportive nor resistant. So the stakeholders falling under this level have been identified as having a high power or influence over the project, and effort should be expended to take such stakeholders to a more desired engagement level. Supportive here, stakeholders are aware of the project and are actively engaged in ensuring the success of the project. This should be desired engagement level of most stakeholders. So leading stakeholders are aware of the project and are actively engaged in ensuring success of the project. Stakeholders with high influence on the project should ideally reach this level of engagement. So next is manage stakeholder engagement. Projects occur to fulfill the stakeholder requirement. If they are not happy, we cannot say that project was a success. Project management is all about managing stakeholders. So this is the process, is a part of executing process. That means we are doing actual work from here. And actual work is all about communicating and working with stakeholders to meet their needs and expectations and to address their issue and to nurture their involvement in the project and make sure that their engagement in the project is alive. This process allows the project manager to increase support and minimize the resistance from the stakeholders. So I guess everyone wants their stakeholder to be more supportive and less resistive. This process is all about ensuring that misunderstanding don't develop between stakeholders as the project progresses. So obviously this is not a temporary process. This means that this process is performed throughout the project. So next is monitor stakeholder engagement. This process is all about monitoring stakeholder relationships and tailoring the strategies to engage stakeholders. Here we need to know the stakeholders' requirements, and we need to know how to monitor or how close or how far our project is from meeting the stakeholders. So, for example, suppose a project sponsor is providing funds for the project. If we have to change the project plan to make sure that sponsor of the project remains satisfied. So many stakeholders seems to be disengaged towards the end of the project. So it is necessary to make some changes to make sure to make them engage in the project. So this is all about stakeholder engagement. From here on, I request Lijo to take away. Thank you.
Thank you, Darshan. Hi friends, this is Lijo Joseph, and I'm here to talk some important aspects in stakeholder management. First one is analyzing the stakeholder. Analyzing the stakeholder simply means identification of each stakeholder and grouping them according to the power and the legitimacy, levels of participation, interest, and influence that they have on the project. You know, multiple stakeholders are involved with a single project. So for the smooth run and the success of that project, we need to identify each stakeholders and prioritize them according to their importance, their impact on that project. It will enable the smooth run of a project. For example, if we are able to identify and analyze as many stakeholders in a typical construction project, the construction industry should be able to manage their expectations in a proactive way from the first moment of the project. The main objective of analyzing stakeholders are to find key organizational players, to gain an early alignment among their goals and plans, to help address conflicts or issues early on, and to ensure the smooth communication between the stakeholders. Analyzing can generally be done by 3 important steps. That is identification, prioritizing, figuring out communication methods. Prioritizing stakeholder. It is simply categorizing or grouping the stakeholders according to their influence and levels of participation and interest on that particular project. In other words, prioritizing can be defined as the sorting out all the stakeholders involved with a typical project according to their priorities. The general prioritization methods are power index grids and prioritization metrics. Power index grids. These are one of the important tools that is used to prioritize stakeholder involved in a project. According to power index grids, stakeholders are generally classified into main 4 categories. First one is high power, high interest. These are the most important stakeholders of the project. They have very high power and they have very high interest in your project. And because of that, you should prioritize them and keeping them happy with your project progress. All key organizational players like project manager, owner comes under this group. And the second one is high power, low interest group. They have a high influence on the company, but they doesn't have much interest in your project. But still, you should work to keep these people satisfied because of their interest. And at some point, you could turn them off if you feel that you over communicate with them. All shareholders, government, regulators comes under this category. The third one is low power, high interest group. You will definitely want to keep these people informed and check with them to make sure that they are not experiencing problem on the project. Because they have very low power, but they have very high deep interest in your project. They work hard for the success of your project. NGOs, trade unions, employees comes under this category. The last one is low power, low interest group. The only thing you want to do with this particular group is just keep these people informed periodically. They need to know they have the right to know the status of this project. But remember, don't overdo it. It can cause some negative effects. Community, society, media, all comes under this particular category. The slide shows a typical structure of a power index grid. The power denoted on the vertical axis and the interest denoted on the horizontal axis. And the stakeholders are arranged according to their importance. This power index grids help a project manager to plan and analyze the stakeholder management in a very beautiful way. Because by this, they can develop a clear managing strategies for the stakeholders. Next one is prioritization metrics. Actually, in the last class, we discussed about the prioritization metrics. One of our friends taught us very well, talk about prioritization metrics very clearly. It is nothing but a structural approach or a simple tool used to manage the stakeholders in the project. And it generally uses index values and criteria to arrange stakeholders. It's like a rating out of 10 or some grades like A, B, C. And higher the index, the more important stakeholder. For example, a stakeholder who gets a 10 out of 10, he's the most important stakeholder. And if one stakeholder gets 1 out of 10, he has only low interest and low power stakeholders. This use multiple factors for the construction of prioritization metrics like cost, scope, effort, impact, time, and interest of the stakeholders on the project. For example, if you want to create a prioritization matrix for a construction industry, first we need to analyze all the activities related with the construction project. And they take one, for example, take one activity. For the estimation process, we need to construct a prioritization matrix. So that first we need to identify the important stakeholders associated with that particular activity. For estimation, just the project manager, architect, estimation engineer, they are all the most important stakeholders for that particular activity. So we need to place all these stakeholders in a prioritization matrix. And from the matrix, we can get a clear idea about who are the most important stakeholder or most stakeholders involved with that particular activity. Like this, we need to make a prioritization matrix for all the each activities in the construction associated with the construction project. And after integrating all those activities, we can identify who are all the important stakeholders and the key organizational players, and who are all have less importance in this project. By this, we can manage the construction project very easily and smoothly. That's the general working pattern of a prioritization matrix. And the next one is documenting stakeholder. After the identification and analyzing, it is necessary to capture and document the stakeholders. This process is called as documenting stakeholder. Generally, an Excel sheet or a list, a stakeholder register can be used for this purpose. And the documentation mainly based on 4 basic information. That is, first one is identification information. That means the name of the stakeholder, contact information, and other relevant identification information like the location, something like that. Second one is assessment information and assumptions. It means it involves documentation of stakeholders based on their needs, the wants, power, influence of stakeholders on that particular project. And third one is classification of stakeholders based on importance and priority. And the fourth one is stakeholder management plan. This is based on the communication method, communication frequency, and amount of information passed, and the communication flow. All these aspects related to the communications. Next, benefits of stakeholder management. A well-executed stakeholder management plan can have certain benefits. A well-stakeholder management plan definitely impact the final productivity of a project in different ways. And the main objectives of a stakeholder well-executed stakeholder management plans are: first one is increased role clarity and focus. By knowing, this simply means by knowing all the stakeholders before the start of the project, a project manager can set some realistic expectation for each type of stakeholder at any given project. Because then he knows all the stakeholders and what they are going to do with this project, and how this will impact the stakeholders, and how they get involved in this particular project. So everything is clear there. So there is no confusion. So it helps thereby improving the clarity around the stakeholders' role, and help them to focus more on productivity. When a stakeholder understands their role and roles of others, it's very easy to work on. And it also increases the chance that your project will remain within the scope from that. And the second one is increased engagement. You know, these days, getting stakeholders involved with a particular project is a really difficult task, because most of the stakeholders are busy with some multiple other projects. So stakeholders definitely need a proper reason to increase their engagement in a particular activity. For that, they need a reason, a strong reason, a well thought out plan which explains all the roles and the impacts and how it will benefit them in their day-to-day role can clearly attract the stakeholders, and it can attract their interest and engagement to the project. Once the stakeholders get more clarity and focus, that they are more likely to become properly engaged in the entire project success. So this is one of the important benefits of stakeholder management. And third one is reduced risk. If we know all the stakeholders and how they're going to work, and what was their thoughts, what was their decisions, and how it will impact the project, and what is the scope of the project, then there is no chance for arising any risks, because everything is clear there. The project have a certain communication pattern, a certain working pattern. So, and it's very clear for everyone involved with that project. So it definitely reduces the conflicts and ultimately risk related to the project. These are all the main 3 important benefits of stakeholder management. Apart from that, there are also multiple other benefits are also there, like cost saving, time saving, and productivity, resource saving, and the list is absolutely endless. Also, sometimes stakeholder mismanagement can lead to some catastrophic effects to an organization. For example, consider if you are a project manager of a particular, you are a project manager or owner of a particular company, and you make a decision, you make only your own decision that impact the stakeholders. It will create some havoc conditions in your company. Similarly, if you see all the problems with your own perspective, that will also create some negative impact on the organization's productivity. So, stakeholder mismanagement can lead to certain deleterious effects like time lagging, resource loss, costs, high cost, less productivity, quality, and so on. So, managing stakeholders and managing stakeholder based on the analysis is really important in stakeholder management. It is an absolute inevitable part in stakeholder management. And that's for me. The next slides will be explained by Ansim Kumar. Thank you all.
Good morning, one and all. Myself, Ansim KP. And first of all, I would like to thanks Liju for the wonderful presentation you have done earlier on analyzing and on the analyzing of stakeholders. Right now, I'm going to talk about project managers, the different types of project managers that are classified into functional and operational, as well as the common attributes and what are the attributes they individually required for being an operational and as well for the functional project managers. So first of all, I would like to explain all of these things as some examples that I have seen in my career itself. That I have been with 2 examples of my my project managers that I worked earlier. So first one is an operational. What is an operational manager? So he's the one who sits in the office and deals with all the HR works. That is, he deals with every files that has been moving through the office and what the project will be like. And there on it starts. His work starts with paperwork, and his day starts from the office to and also ends in the office. In between, he visits the site and all. He's a very he's a very busy person like that. And then he's the one who has talent. He's the one who recruits who all are required for the project. And when there is a deficiency in some persons or in some projects, he's the one whom we have to report to it. And if he finds it required, and he hires them. Then whom all he hires, he need to set them on certain basis of things that how office is proceeding or how the site is proceeding. He should set the training for them, training program then, and then comes the he sets the standards of works, like what all standards should be followed and what are the limits that is being set. If a project is set to have M30 kind of concrete, then the project is to work on M30 concrete works only. There should be any change in that. So these kind of things, the operational manager, he is the one who deals with it. And then comes the functional one. The functional one is always the functional one. He is always in the site. He is the one who deals with the real site issues, deals with every laborers over there, every engineers who's working under, and everyone who's there at the site. He manages the resources. He manages human resource, he manages the material resources, he manages everything that is happening in the site. Then he trains the hired new talent. Like once the operational manager sets thinks a person is good for work, and he sets him to be a part of the site, then then there comes the functional manager. Here he comes. He tries to explain how the job is done, how the job could be done, and how the job should be finished. Everything he explains in his own ways. Then he sets the standards aside. Like there might be situations where there may be experiences some problems in the site. He is the one who will deal with the site issues and all. Then only if it couldn't be handled by him, then only it will go into the operational manager level and all. If it goes to the operational manager level, it should be something like some issues that would be related to some changes in drawings, or it couldn't be executed as per the drawings in the site, like that and all. Only he will send it to the operational manager. So right now I will explain how these persons works with how my experience was with them. First of all, the operational manager was a deputy chief engineer for me. He was working in the electrical department, and he deals with he's actually the operational manager of the project, and the functional manager is the assistant executive engineer that worked in that project. And there were many assistant executive project, and two or three deputies. Among them, I worked with one in each of them. So the deputy, he was a cool person. Not every time he's not very cool every time. He used to run around the office all the time. He always pushes the other his subordinates to do the work properly. Do it right now. 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 This is what every time he says. Even though he knows that the work is tedious, the work might need some more time to finish it, and he always try to push them. Like it's not like pushing them in a wrong manner. The thing is that he always push them in the supporting manner. He encourages them to do it properly. When it goes out of the office, it should be like in a perfect manner. It should be in the one way form. That is what he does. And first of all, deputy chief engineer was the one who appointed me. And for the first year, I was working with I was appointed at the site only, under the assistant executive engineer. So the first day of my interview, he explained to me all the works I'm going there, and I was sitting over there. I was thinking, like, I doesn't know what is happening over there. What is he telling? I doesn't know anything. I just sat there on with a face that like looked as a dumb face. I was sitting over there, and he recognized me as like saying like you didn't understand anything, right? It is a different part of work, a different way of working and all here. So you need to adjust with you will have to cope up with it, and you'll have to set your standards to new limits so that you can work here. So, and he was going on like that. And then he appointed me in the site, and I was working under the assistant executive engineer. So the first day when I came to the site, he was like, okay, you are the new one, right? So do you know these things, those things? And he was just explaining, he was just asking me what all I know. So what he did initially was that he tried to understand what I did know. What I know, he tried to understand that. And then after knowing those things, what I know, he divided my work, and he put it, and he suggested me to work on some fields that I did know initially, so that I can get friendly to the environment that I'm working now. And he started on work, and I started on working with that. And thereon, like from day one, day two, day three, he started to monitor me. He always used to monitor me. He always used to monitor my works. how I'm proceeding with the works, how I set the standards, how am I doing with the measurements, am I keeping it all the books, they are up to date, everything. He was keeping on checking on that everything. And thereafter, on after 2 or 3 weeks, he came to me. He told me, what all you know at one point of your work is good. Then knowledge on that at that point is ambient. That is fine. And now you will be shifting to another side where the work is entirely different. So once I got familiar with the environment, he started to shift me to different sites where the different types of works are going on, and he tried to get me involved in everything, like every part of works were there. And thereon I started to work with every field in India. So thereafter he also gave me lessons on every day, how these works should be done, how the measurements should be kept, how these standards should be kept, everything. Used to give me a less like before I enter the site, or on most of the mornings when I go to register my attendance, he used to say to me, he always gives me lessons on every work that is happening, on previous examples, on previous problems that he or the old one faced over there, and how we should conquer it. Everything he used to keep. He always used to keep a set of book in there. On every date, he used to write everything, every work that is happening, and even if there is any problem happening on the side and how they conquered it, everything it is written on that book. Like it was like a Bible for us. For whenever we face any problems over there, then we will have to just go in there and refer that book only. We just don't even need to ask him or anything like that. We just need to go and refer that book, and if the problem has occurred earlier and the solution was taken by him, I always want to say that if it was taken by him only, then we will proceed. Like there's some historical data. If what he has written, then we will do it. If it is by someone else, we will have to ask everyone in the site before proceeding it now. And he also explained me the hierarchy of the company. He explained me every hierarchy. So on which level I am working with, what are the levels on top of me, what all should I whom all are working under me. Everything he explained to me, everything in every stages he used to explain. Well, like when I moved upon the hierarchy also, he also explained me how these things are going on. And then what should I say about him? Then his practical knowledge, I should definitely say this, his practical knowledge on work happening in electricity board, that is something that I can't explain by my words. He does knows the everything, like starting from how a pin to be placed in a tower, to how the tower is placed in, or the electrical lines are up, or how the electricity is generated in those towers. Everything he knows the complete A to Z of the project. And he's and so is that he is also the functional manager of a project. And then after some time, I was appointed at the office for almost 1.5 years, something like that. Thereon I started to work with the operational manager. Then what all I enjoyed at the site, I started to use it. At office, it starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time. Sometimes we have to work at any other time also, but at times we used to like it was a common schedule and going on with the paperwork. There will be only paperwork, designing things and all. And then I came to know with the operational manager. Like always, what I expected of him was completely different. I thought he would be like an arrogant person. He won't listen to us. He won't be he does have that head of the, he does have the pride of the head of the office. And when I came to understand with him, I was shocked to know that he's the down to earth person. Down to earth person. He's like, when I started my work at office, he is the one who was more supportive. Then there was also my assistant executive engineer over there also was there. He is the one I was working under, but the deputy chief engineer was the operational manager of the office as well as the project. So thereon I started to work with my deputy. Then he was like, everything that goes through him, that should be known by everyone. Who when someone tries to bring a file to him, like, let me say with an example. While I was designing a project for a special design, that was a special design for a tower that had a little bit high spans that was crossing a railway line and all. So in that time, we ourselves built a new type of design for the foundation of it. So it was me and the assistant executive engineer who built that design. So I was the one who was going to take the file and get the sign from the deputy. So I was the one who was engaged with that. So I went on to him. I gave him the file. He started to read every point in that thing, and every point. There was around like 300 or 400 pages of thing that was there. He started to read every lines of it, and due to the time deficiency he had, he took it to his home also to finish what was it doing. Everything, what all there was what all he had the doubts, he just marked it with that, and he came to us and asked about how it could come, how there is how these things will happen and all. So he didn't have that pride and all. He worked with everyone, and he considered everyone equal. That is one of the major thing that I found in him as a very good thing. Thereafter, okay, this is all about my personal experience, and now I'm moving on to the attributes of a project manager. Now coming on to the common attributes, like whomever, like this is just to my personal experience. Whomever you are working, like if you're working in a construction project, you should have a good communication skill. Without that, you are just going to be sitting in some corner of the site, and you just can't like rise in a site. It might just may not be, just might be my own view, or I always it is in my opinion, in any person, it should be like, I will tell you, if some labors on the site, he doesn't have a proper thing to work, or he doesn't have a proper working environment to work in, that he should report it to his senior. That may be a foreman, that may be a supervisor, that may be an engineer over there. Anyone who's there, he should try to communicate with them, and he should ask him for his requirements, rather than he can't just because he can't ask, he just can't go on an what could I say, on an hazardous environment and work over there. He should go there. He should ask someone. Then if he doesn't get it, he should also know to ask them properly how to get it for them. That is how it works with me. I can't conclude it with that like that. For me, it is like everyone in the person. It's not just this communication skill is not just limited to project managers and operational function. It should be everyone in the site. Everyone should have this knowledge, this communication skill. Other than that, no one can survive in a project. Then coming to work knowledge. Work knowledge. Let it be anything. Let the work be anything. There should be a person who should know the work, who should know how difficult a work could be and how easy a work could happen. Then coming to the coming like I would like to share an example with that in that also. When I was working with the functional, that is a assistant executive engineer, there was a new recruit, and he came from a very prestigious college also. So he started to show off something like he's someone above everyone who has been working over there, and he started he said something to the supervisor, I think. Yeah, he said like something to supervisor in a way that it was a very good harassment to the one he was speaking. The supervisor didn't tell anything, like he was aware, he did know everything in that work, like everything, how things could be done. He has a set of work knowledge. In that he's like a lion, a dawn in it. He knows what to do in those kind of works. In some there is also some other works where he knows minimal also, but on some works he does know what he has to do it. So the new one, he just came and told him that the work shouldn't be done like that. It should be had these things, then things, and he changed every set of things that has been happening over there. And he set a new form work and all. And he said, and the best thing is that as a civil engineer, I shouldn't mock it like that. Whenever there is a cantilever happening, the tension of the steel, the tension will happen always on top of the slab only, or beam. So that the steel should be placed at the top of the section. And then he came here. I should say that that new talent, he had sufficient theoretical knowledge, but he didn't have this practical knowledge how these things should be placed in the site enough. He just told those things, and he just made everything on the perfect ways that he thought it was. And it was casted, and after 28 days, when the formwork was taken off, when the formwork was taken off, the supervisor asked the workers, just stay 2 or 3 meters away from the slab and just take it off. Just use a stick to like what? Just take a stick and try to put down the probes and all. So once the probe was taken out, in like 13 or 20 minutes, the slab started to break, and it just fell down. There comes the work knowledge. So it shouldn't be like if you are new to a site, then and you learn something at your theories, and you should understand how these things are done in practical also. So work knowledge is always it's not like something that you can get from classrooms alone. It should be something that you get from everywhere. Then moving on to the next thing, there will be strong leadership skills. Strong leadership skills, like a manager, he should be like, he should run the whole project by himself only. There won't be anyone for him to blame on. He is the top of the hierarchies, and then when something happens, then there is nothing that he can blame on to others, or he can just move on from there. He should he is the one who takes all the responsibilities. Like the previous example where the slab fell down, my assistant executive engineer, that will be the operational the functional manager, he took on the blame. He said to the client that it is his mistake that he did it, that the new one did the work like that. And later on, he just he took the blame that he didn't give him proper information, he didn't give him proper training. That was the thing. So it will be an excuse from him. and it was like half the payment that will be gone from the company, and the half the payment will be paid by the client also. That is how how he ended it up, which in which the most of the things should be bared by the company. He made it half to the client, and he made half for the company also. Then comes a good decision maker. At a stage when a problem arises, he is the one that everyone will look into it. Everyone will look into it. There would be no other person that the other person will look. It will be completely up to him, the person who will look. So what next? It will be his answer. Even if there is not a problem also, what is the next step to be done? That will be his answer only. So he should have the caliber to take the good decision maker. That will come with a definite number of experience in the work site, as well as the knowledge. That's the work knowledge, the theoretical knowledge, everything that should be taken into account. And then he comes with them. Then it comes there. For me, I had a wonderful decision makers in my projects. That was my deputy as well as my assistant executive engineers. They were a very good decision makers, and they have made so many decisions at certain times that everyone was stuck at a certain point. There they gave us the decision. They told it could be done like that. They could be. So they whoever's gonna be a project manager should have that caliber to take the decision, the final decision. It should be done like this. No more talking on this. It should be done like this. It should be gone through like that, and that's all. Then comes the technical expertise. The technical expertise, it should like the same example that I told about the work knowledge thing. The person, the new hiree, he had the technical expertise, but he didn't know how that these things are placed and or worked under the site. He does know the theoretical way or the technical way how it could be done, but he doesn't know how it would be achieved at his site. So this is the technical expertise. The technical expertise comes from the knowledge that you have studied in your classroom, as well as when you work with some good persons, you will get into it. And then comes the team building skill. The team building skills, I would like to go with my old story that when my assistant executive engineer during my first site, he just said me with the team that I can work. He made me sure that he made me sure that I work in a team that where I can work. That is not something where I should have to cope up with some other or adjust with some other persons, like arrogant fellows are there. They should he sorted out everyone. He sorted out everyone so that I, being a new one in the team, he sorted out that if I am placed at a site, there should be the place where I am placed should have necessary persons that I can cope up with, or where they can cope up with me. So it was he is the one who understood my skills or my nature or my characteristics, and he placed me with the team that I require. So he's very good with that. And then comes the good negotiation skills. Likewise, I also explained you in strong leadership skills. He's the one who took the engaged with the client. It was a problem that had occurred completely due to negligence from our side, from the company's side. He came with the client, and he asked them he negotiated so much that the half of the cost of the failure of the slab goes to the client, and only the half comes into the company side. So this is how a negotiation skill should work. Then competence. I already told you that there are many executive engineers in a project, but there were only two functional managers who were working at that level. Then accountable. Accountable. When coming to accountable, coming to accountable, like he is the one you can look into it when a problem comes, or there's a problem that has happened in the site, and like you doesn't know how to come across it, how you can solve it, or but it is not known by any other else, but still, but it is not, but you know it, and you can look into someone else. There comes and there he should be there, a project manager. That should be either a functional manager, not an operational manager. Anyone who's the manager over there, he should be accountable. Like, you can go directly to him and you can say that those things that happen like that, like this or that, but it doesn't know how to overcome it, how we can solve it, how we can resolve it. Then or it had happened out of you. Like, there was a situation in my side, at my side, where I was building a minor bridge. These are minor bridges. These minor bridges are like 3 to 6 meter span. That's all. That is all the maximum it can come. And while excavating for the foundation of this minor bridge, there was two railway cables. That is, one is for the OFC, that is optical fiber cables, and there was also the train counter cable was also there. When I was excavating, I was using this using the land remover for excavating. And while the time I was going to set up my dumpy level, this fellow in the fellow operating the excavator, he broke those two cables. And it was like for 20 to 30 minutes, it was a utter shutdown for a lane in Kottayam. Like, that was a site that I'm working working with. The trains were not able to get the signals. The trains, the number of the counts of the trains that had left the bridge and that I came into the bridge was all lost. And and that situation, I didn't know what to do. And then the only thing what I did was, like, after thinking for 2 or 3 minutes, how can I connect it now, something like that. What I did was I just called him. I just called my functional manager, that is assistant executive engineer. I called him. He told, what have you done? This is going to be major risk. He explained me there is a problem. He told me there is a problem, but Ansum, it's okay. You don't need to worry a lot. We will try to fix it somehow. He came to the he was like 15 or 16 kilometers away from my side. At the very few minutes, he came to the site. He called every concerned persons in it. From starting from the workers who was working with the OFCs, then to the railways operational manager, someone like that. He called everyone. He resolved it in a fashionable way. It was a very skillful way. He just finished it, everything. And he ended up everything just within 45 minutes of 1 hour. He ended everything, and he just went back, and he told me, next time don't do this. As this is your first time, it can be it can be okay. For the next time, it won't be okay. Then comes the influencer part. With a person having so much of attributes, like good communication skill, knowledge, leadership, decision maker, a good decision maker, a technical expertise, a good team builder, a good negotiator, and a very good competitor, and then someone who could be accountable. These all things are just necessary for a person to be a good influencer also. I don't need to explain more how a person should be influenceable. So next will be the operational and functional. So certain things that should be that will be limited to their person at their function at their working stages. Like an operational manager, when he tries to hire a person, he should see inside him. Yeah, just because might be a person who's who's been interviewed might not be able to say everything that he wants to say. Like there might be he does know the work, he does know to make them work, everything he does know, but at times he may not be able to convey it properly. So those kind of persons, like those who are talented, he should find them. Then comes theoretical knowledge. The operational manager, he is mostly at the office, so he should know how these things, how the theoretical part of the work is being carried out. Then how this theoretical knowledge plays an important role for him. Then also his work experience also plays a major role in him. Then comes the numerical skills. He should be good with numerical. He is the person who runs the office. He's the one who pays them, who pays the persons, who pays everyone, who pays for new bills, new equipment charge, and everything what is happening out there. He should be good with numericals then. And then there are also like number of person. He's the one who's allotting so much of persons over there, so much of persons on the other side, so much of persons in the office. So he should keep a count of everything. Where there is necessary, there should the necessity should be given, and where there is an in a work site, there might be 2 or 3 assistant engineers, 2 or 3 assistant executive engineers, may be working in a project. In those kind of projects, they should screen them who all are necessary over there, and they should be allocated over there, and so many persons should be allocated over there. There's only so much of necessary persons over there required. Like that, he should be working with that. And then comes budget allocation. The project starts with an amount and then ends with another amount. That is not at all tolerable by the clients. If it is under the budget that has been estimated earlier, then the client will be fine. He will be happy. He will be okay with that. And if it crosses the budget, then there will be talks, there will be negotiation, there will be things and everything. So budget allocation, everything that has been purchased or everything that will be, he should allocate the budgets. We should he shouldn't allocate more budget to equipments, and then less budget to the labor, so that it could compensate with that. He should find an optimal way to allocate everything. Then comes these legal decision makers. At certain points, there will be legal issues that can happen in a site or project. Like when I could say an example of that. When I was working at the office, there was a person whose property had an extension which he is not using at all. Like he couldn't use it. So our project was like, so if we could use that wasteland, we could minimize a large budget. So we started to ask him about it, and he told it's okay, you can go with it, you can use the land and all. So when starting from, so thereafter we started to work with the paperwork for that. And then at the final moment, he told he needed so much of money for it, and that was allocated to him, and everything was done. Then later he filed a after the paperwork were done, and he receiving the money, he gave a paper to the vigilance that our officer asked, have bribed the legal work land authority, so that we can get his land. Like that, he has given a complaint to all the office, that is all the office. Like he went into the court, he went into the vigilance in land authority, vigilance in work authority, everything, everywhere he went and gave papers. At a time we all thought like, oh my god, what will we do? So but what our deputy did was that he made everything signed by the petitioner. He got it signed, everything got a signed, or he either took some videos or photos, something like that, and he just he kept it for himself. And when these all persons came to us, he produced all these things. He did know there will be a legal issue coming up, and he made a decision like that, and he did it. Then comes the organizational process. He's the one who develops an organizational process. It may be some kind of templates, it can't be anything, like it's the set of how the work should be done, how it should be done, and now. And coming to the functional thing, the functional manager should always be a work implementer. He should implement the theoretical knowledge, that what all he had, into the work. And then comes the practical knowledge. As he's been working in the sites, he does knows the practicality of a work, how it can be executed, how it can be done, everything he does now. Then comes the layman's calculation skill. Like there are certain like when you go to the site, there will be labels. He will be calculating an area, like there's so much of square feet will be there to done. So this is the wastage, this is the thing, and this thing, as a person who has came out from an engineering college, he might not know that, but they will calculate due to with some tolerance and all. Then they will develop it. So he should also be, by working with them, we should also know that how these things are done. Then comes the resource management. These all are kind of things that everyone will know that. And now I'm just concluding myself with the construction code knowledge. These are how the set of from the road to the building should have, how the roof should slab, how the slope of the roof should have, everything that is demanding the construction code knowledge. And the quality control, whatever your work is, it should be done in a good quality. That should be your agenda. It shouldn't be changed. And with that, I'm concluding myself. Now I'm asking Mr. Rajesh to do the conclusion part, and thank you.
Thank you, Anzim. This is Rajesh. Now I would like to continue with the role of stakeholders in business, voting and decision making. Stakeholders may be responsible for voting on the significant changes in this business. Voting can take place annually based on the corporate structure of the business or during any meeting. For instance, in National Turbo Construction Company, voting takes place annually for significant changes in the business. Management. Stakeholders can hold significant management positions where they may report directly to the president, CEO, or chief financial officer. For example, portfolio manager, project manager, all they report to directly to the president or CEO of the company. Investing. Stakeholders are responsible for reviewing the financial data of the company to ensure that the business is performing well and they are not losing their investment. As I specified, the program manager and the portfolio manager constantly reviews the financial data of the company to ensure the business is performing well and they are not losing their investment. Social and environmental responsibilities. Stakeholders must continuously ensure that decisions they are making for the business are doing little harm to the society and to the environment. For instance, in a lot of construction companies, the the concrete waste has to be dumped in a place where it does not harm any, so it does not cause any harm to the society or the environment. They may choose they may choose to use an alternate resource if they realize that current resources become scarce. Conclusion. Identifying the stakeholders and analyzing the stakeholders with their priorities helps in detailed planning of the project and determines the interest of each stakeholder. The project team identifies the internal, external, positive, negative, performing and advising stakeholders in order to determine the project requirements and expectations of all parties involved. Stakeholder engagement plan helps in planning and performing the project according to their needs and interests. Project manager should manage the influences of these various stakeholders in relation to the project requirements to ensure a successful outcome. The role of a project manager is distinct from a functional manager or operations manager. If the project manager applies project management knowledge, the functional manager is focused on providing management oversight for a functional or a business unit, whereas the operations managers are responsible for ensuring the business operations are efficient. The project manager applies project management knowledge along with personal and leadership skills to finish the project successfully. Thank you.